The Hornets had a lot of three, but not enough D this weekend. We go over both games and talk about what's coming up. It's a tough road to hoe ahead for the Charlotte Hornets. That's all coming up on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
Welcome into Locked On Hornets. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, local experts on the #1 daily sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Prize Picks has the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. Check them out today at prizepicks.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day, or maybe your first watch if you're checking us out on our brand spanking new YouTube channel, which I am super proud of. Go and check out our interview that we did with Eric Collins, the GOAT, on our YouTube channel today. We are free and available on all platforms. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, now on YouTube. Link to the YouTube channel, by the way, is pinned on Twitter at Locked On Hornets. You can follow me on Twitter at Doug Branson, LOH. I am Doug Branson. No Walker Mail today. He is doing a travel day for Walker, getting rested up for the rest of this week, just like the Hornets. So with me today, my old co-host from Hive Talk Live and Locked On Hornets 1.0, David Walker. You can follow him on Twitter at David B. Walker. David, what's going on, my man?
What's up, man? This is a throwback episode, but we've got a deep bench now. So, when somebody's traveling or they've got a rest day, we could just have somebody come off the bench. I'm happy to be that guy now. Maybe not as many minutes as in the heyday, but I can still give you a few to fill in.
It's true. This show does have a deep bench, a deep roster now of guests that we're bringing on each and every week. David and I are going to talk about our favorite moments for the hardcore fans, our favorite moments from Locked On Hornets 1.0 later in the show. But first, we got to get to the biggest stories from the weekend. We'll also, in the second segment, we're going to talk about this game, important game coming up tonight against the Chicago Bulls. We'll break that down. And later on in the show, you definitely want to stick around because Lavar Ball is starting to speak. We didn't know when it was going to happen, but we were sure that it was going to happen. Lavar Ball finally having his say, or beginning to have his say. We'll tell you what he did say coming up later in the show. But first, let's talk about these big stories from the weekend. So the Hornets get a big win on Friday against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Those Timberwolves were on a 5-game winning streak. They were playing great basketball, and the Hornets really just smacked them in the mouth. Big win for the Hornets on Friday. But then, David, they followed it up with a loss to the Rockets in Houston. They made a valiant comeback and hit a lot of three-pointers, just like they did in that Minnesota game. But it really came down to the defense, just a lack of defense, enough defense in that game, and they fall to the Rockets. What did you think about their performance over the weekend?
Yeah, I guess we can start with the Rockets ones because that one sticks out a little bit more to me and probably everyone else, just because the Rockets were so bad going in. We talked about it in the weekend preview that it's just a young team that was really struggling. And, if you didn't know before, when you tuned in, you certainly saw the lack of the crowd there, gave you a little tip-off to how the Rockets have been playing so far this season. But, you mentioned before the show, a lot of people saying the schedule loss. I certainly think that had a piece in it. The Rockets had not played since Wednesday when they were at home. The Hornets, of course, played the night before, had to fly in and play a road game back-to-back. But, you can't give up 43 points in the first quarter to anyone. Yeah. And that's something that this team knows. That's something that JB knows. And so right from the outset, they put themselves in one of those holes that they'd gotten away from. They'd done a better job of starting fast. And even against a young team that was prone to make mistakes, that really gave them a lot of chances, gave the Hornets a lot of chances to get back into this game and even win it. You're just fighting uphill the entire game. So you can't give up 43 points in that first quarter, regardless of what you do the rest of the way.
No, I totally agree. I don't think that this was necessarily a schedule loss. I did call that loss to Atlanta a schedule loss, but this one didn't feel that way. I thought the Hornets could have had enough legs to beat this Rockets team. I really thought
they had enough firepower for sure.
Sure, yeah, offensively they had legs. I mean, that's to
Mm.
me now towards the end of the game, once they got into the late period of this game, you could start to tell some of those shots for PJ and Terry were falling short. But it never had to get to that place. If you had played even let's take the first quarter out of it. Although total lapse, I think they left their brains in Charlotte. Total lapse of defensive organization. I mean, it was a full team defensive breakdown. You had your full complement of defensive bad, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
You had not blocking out. You had bad out of bounds plays. Bad defense on the out of bounds plays. You had Christian Wood cutting to the rim over and over. Bad communication between Hayward and between Miles Bridges. You had Oubre just not really locked in on defense at all. So it was just you had the classic kind of LaMelo Ball gambling on one of these wood plays during a zone defense set. And whenever you gamble when you're playing zone, especially if you're up top like LaMelo, you're going to leave the other side of the court completely unweighted. And you've got Gordon Hayward having to make a decision, and it leads to, I believe, a Garrison Matthews three. Don't even get me started on Garrison
Sounds
Matthews. David, Garrison Matthews. How is this? How do the Hornets keep getting beaten by these names like Garrison Matthews and Matt Thomases of the world? I just don't get it.
I mean, you do have to give some credit to the Rockets there. They just literally shot the lights out that night, and Matthews was certainly one of those. But they gave him some good looks early, and they let him get comfortable, right? And you can't do that against these guys that really don't know any better. You have to put them away early.
They finally started to lock in on defense in the fourth quarter, but by then it was just too late. I mean, they had to expend so much energy getting back into that basketball game that by the time they had the lead started to flip-flop over and over in the fourth quarter because they couldn't hold on to it. But had they played even just moderate defense in the second or third quarter, I thought it would have been enough to get over the hump, because bad teams like Houston typically allow you back in the game. Like, it wasn't a surprise to me.
Times.
Yeah, right. It wasn't a surprise to me that the Hornets were able to get back into the game, but they could have stepped up the defense in the second quarter, third quarter, showed some of that resiliency that we've seen from them all season, and I think it would have been enough.
And that was the thing. I think just the last thing on this. I think starting the start of both halves, because even in the third quarter, right, they had a good run to take the lead for the first time, I think, at the end of the half, and then they gave up a three to give the lead back going into halftime. But then coming out of the locker room, both teams went back and forth and hit like 6 or 7 3-pointers combined between the two in a row. And the Hornets were just not giving up enough fight. They weren't clamping down enough to kind of keep that momentum going from the first half. So that's why it's a little bit of a head scratcher, because you can kind of write off one half and say, all right, now come just make it a little better to start the second half. But they didn't do that. They gave up 37 points in the third quarter, to your point. So it's like, you can write off a little bit of not being ready to go one time, but when you do it to start both halves, you kind of get what you deserve.
Well, and it brings up, I think, two big weaknesses that the Hornets have to overcome each and every night when they step on the floor. And one is that they're not playing well at the rim. They really live and die by the 3-point shots. Why they're even, I think they're an above average offense at this point, but it's only because they've just been completely lights out from three. I mean, this offense would look pretty pathetic if they weren't hitting shots. They've just hit shots night after night, even when they're playing bad defense or good defense. They've just been knocking down shots, and you saw in both those games against Minnesota and Houston, they are just pushing the pace like we've never seen before and getting a lot of shot opportunities. But they also live and die by defense. They can't take a night off on defense. They can't play lackadaisical defense, especially against a Rockets team that was just ready to pounce. I mean, they were ready to jump on it, and the Hornets didn't really come prepared. One more thing I want to get to in this first segment, and that's PJ Washington returning to the lineup. He was started the past two games due to the fact that Mason Plumlee is spending some time out due to a calf strain. It doesn't seem like a serious thing for Mason, but he's been playing, a lot with PJ out. Now that PJ's back, it gives them an opportunity to rest Mason and get him fully healthy. What have you thought about PJ Washington back into the fold for the Hornets?
I think he's been really good. I mean, for what they ask him, he's been able to step out, went 3 of 4 from 3 against the Rockets, 5 of 7 overall in 35 minutes. Didn't get to the line at all. But hit some big shots when they needed to, and was able to step out there and extend the defense. That's something that Mason Plumlee does not give them, the ability for the big guy to step out and hit a couple threes like PJ does. But man, you look at that game and it just highlights the fact that they have literally no one at center. Nick
Mhm.
Richards, notwithstanding, that's how shallow that center position is, and it's noticeable when it's just Mason Plumlee. But when you lose him, I mean, my gosh, you're looking around. Christian Wood, had a night. Of course he would. I mean, there's nobody in there to stop him. So it's just a constant reminder of that gaping hole at center there. Even when you have PJ come in, because he is a big boost to what this team can do on offense, but they have nothing in there to just stop someone inside, and it's obviously a big Achilles heel for this team.
Yeah, I think Richards, to his credit, he's getting limited minutes right now, and he's coming in and giving good limited minutes. Like, he's coming in and getting a few offensive rebounds, giving them good energy play, running the floor. That's great. But I think the reason he's getting limited minutes is because Borrego understands that over long stretches of time, teams will find a way to attack Nick Richards on defense, bringing him out. He's not going to be great unless he's really just sort of hunting for a block down low. And so he knows that teams will expose that. And he's had more success going to the small lineup than sticking with Nick Richards and some other bench pieces.
7 minutes, for
Yeah.
Richards against the Rockets. So nothing really.
No, and I don't necessarily think that was the defensive problem. I don't know. I don't really know if Nick Richards would have created that much more havoc for Christian Wood, who just seemed on a mission. I mean, the Hornets, of course, had Christian Wood, sent him to Greensboro, seemed like, and played some in Charlotte too, seemed kind of promising, and then they let him free due to the fact that they just had a lot of players under contract, and he ended up with Philly for a while, and now just really playing excellent basketball in Houston. Good job for you, sir. But it's pretty clear, David, that the Hornets are grinding right now. I mean, Coach Borrego's even talking about it. This has been tough strength of schedule, and they've traveled a ton, and they're fighting through it right now. And they've got a tough schedule coming up, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next segment of the show. But first, I got to tell you about Prize Picks. You heard about it at the beginning of the show. Have you heard about Prize Picks? Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. I love this, and I know you will too. Prize Picks has the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. They offer more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator, and they offer all the superstar players as well as the bench players, only recording a handful of minutes each game. So if you like that deep DFS action, you got to go with Prize Picks. They offer any prop you can think of. Football right now, they do yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown. So if you love the prop bets, and Super Bowl's coming up, a lot of college football coming up, championship games, love to do the prop picks. You got to go with Prize Picks. All of our users, all of our listeners, all of our viewers that deposit and use our promo code will receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Just use the promo code NBA. Use that award-winning Prize Picks app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's super easy. Prize Picks is safe, and they offer fast withdrawals as well, and that's what you care about. You want to get that money. Don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com and use promo code NBA, or go to your App Store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. David, you and I talk about this a lot. Trouble, with different kinds of devices and services that we use to watch the sports we love. David, does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows, you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff, or maybe your co-host login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all of that entertainment that you love without all of the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Coming up, they've got a big game against the Chicago Bulls tonight. We break it all down here on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
We just flat out eat some noodles on Thanksgiving, and they're really good.
That's a new one. I really haven't heard of
I
people
know.
just doing some straight nudes on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Is there some Italian background in your family? Is that why
No.
nudes show up? No,
No, I don't think.
Nope, just some straight Anglican nudes.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
All right, David, we've got the gang back together here, the old Hive Talk Live crew, Locked On Hornets 1.0. It was you and me at the very beginning. So really quickly, before we get to this game against Chicago that's coming up tonight, do you have a favorite moment from our time doing Hive Talk Live or Locked On Hornets 1.0?
A favorite moment? Well, I used to do the show quite a bit. Statutes of limitations, I guess, are passed now. But driving in the car, Doug, I don't know if you recall this, on my way to work or school drop off or wherever, that's
mobile
we had to
unit.
We had to mesh schedules, right? So we had to. You had your.
That was before we were on video.
Yes, of course. That would have been, something impressive. We could have pulled that off. So just, I think the daily grind of that, avoiding pedestrians, not getting into any traffic citations, getting to a good parking place, surprisingly good acoustics in those cars though. So that was just, the daily grind of that was something else. I mean, this is not this podcast we've been doing it day by day, daily thing for a very long time.
That's right. My favorite moment was when we had general manager Rich Cho in studio.
Oh, of course.
And we played a game called International Prospect or International Delicacy. And Rich, obviously, it's his job. He took it very seriously. And I think he was a little peeved at us for when he got a few of them wrong. He got a few of the prospects wrong. He was a little peeved at us.
Listen,
sorry, Rich.
I'm sorry.
All right.
We'll see how Mitch does at that game at some point, I bet.
I think Mitch would be actually great. I'm telling you, he's sneaky like a little fox. Sometimes he comes out in these press conferences and you're like, is this what's going on here? Has he got his hand on the wheel? But there's no doubt. I mean, our Kupchak runneth over. I mean, he is. We watched Book Night and Kai Jones finally, the two rookies, finally get some play time against Minnesota. You saw Book Night throw it up for the Kai Jones dunk. David, we get to watch the Hornets' future while they win basketball games. That's a new one for Hornets fans who haven't been around for a while.
And we don't need to worry about it. We don't need to count on it. We don't need to look at the rookie ladder anymore to be our only source of hope and happiness during the season. That's one thing I noticed.
No.
I don't care. Who cares who wins the Rookie of the Year? I don't care anymore.
No, listen, Book and Kai are going to be just fine. I know people are worried because they're not getting many minutes. Terry Rozier is playing well enough now that I think any kind of small, tiny, lingering questions about his status in the rotation have been completely obliterated. He's been one of the shining spots for them over the past 5 to 10 games. So I think Book Night and Kai are going to have to be patient and bide their time, but I think they'll be big pieces for the Hornets in years to come. Okay, let's talk about tonight's game against Chicago. Chicago 13-8 on the season. They are 5th in the East. They're a half game up on Charlotte, who sits at 6th in the East after the loss to the Rockets. David, the Bulls started out hot. They basically reorganized their entire team. They've added DeRozan to the lineup. He's been huge. They added Nick Vucevic, an old Hornets enemy from the Orlando days. So they've added some new pieces here, shaking things up. Zach LaVine playing well. Started out hot, but they've lost 3 out of their last 4 losses to Indiana, Houston. Their only win is versus the Orlando Magic, which I just called Adam Silver, and he told me that any wins against Orlando this year do not count. So just wipe those away, including the win that the Hornets got. David, what do you think about this matchup tonight against Chicago?
Ball versus ball, right? I think at first look
yeah.
at the new look Ball brother matchup. But yeah,
that's the big headline.
Of course. Certainly one of the darlings of the first part of the season, I would say, were the Bulls and gotten a lot of attention. I just did not think the DeRozan addition and the way they reconstructed this team would work at all. And they proved me wrong on that. So good on them. The Hornets, I think, may be able to sneak one in because the Bulls may be looking ahead Thursday, got a big matchup with New York. But they're going to have to match, I think, some of their firepower. And with those two guys, DeRozan and Levine. I mean, they're 25, 26 point a night. So the Hornets are going to have to, try and stop some of them. Is he still out though?
No, they just recently got him back. He's played
They
the
just got
last
him
3
back.
games. Yep.
Okay, that would have been helpful if he was out because, as we discussed, not a lot of help on the interior for the Hornets. So
No.
yeah, but I mean, they're playing well. Maybe trying to get back on track a little bit. Both teams kind of looking to rebound from some losses recently.
Yeah, you really hope that Chicago hasn't read the scouting report on Charlotte, and Vooch just tries to shoot a bunch of threes and really stretch the floor instead of going down and dominating. But he's been really good for them on. I don't know if he individually has been good for them on defense, but I was looking at some numbers, and when Vooch, DeRozan, and Levine are on the floor, the Chicago Bulls have one of their best defensive ratings, and their defense has improved as the year has gone on as well. 97.8, their defensive rating when all 3 of those players are on the floor. So I really think, the starting lineup has to make shots tonight and lock in on defense. The Hornets have been depending a lot on Kelly Oubre and Cody Martin to come in, Kelly to provide the offense, Cody to provide the defense. I think really the starters have to step up in this one and challenge a really good starting lineup for Chicago and make sure that this game doesn't get out of hand early. What do you think about that?
And shouldn't be a problem getting up early for this one, right? Especially coming off of that. A lot of lessons to learn coming out of that Houston game. This should be a good crowd in Chicago tonight. They will be without Mason Plumlee again, and he has been ruled out for this one. So they're going to have to pull everything together on defense and really get back to what they were doing, which was playing on a string, right? There was so much talk about that in that run that they had. The team defense was so much better on the perimeter. They were talking, they were moving together. So, yeah, obviously that's going to be a big deal, and they got to continue the hot shooting. But it starts from, the top down LaMelo and Terry. I mean, those have been your go-to guys as of late. But the defense is going to have to be better, obviously. That goes without saying.
The dirty little secret about this improved Hornets defense is that a lot of their stops are generated, not by physically stopping a team at the rim. It's by, stealing the basketball, forcing turnovers. And that's something that the Bulls are a little immune to. They don't turn the basketball over. They have a weird shot profile that's very different than a lot of other teams in the league. They're not in vogue. They've got DeRozan, they've got Levine, they've got Vooch. So they're playing a lot short mid, long mid, playing at the rim a lot. They're not shooting a lot of threes. So, of course, the Hornets know the scouting report. They're going to try to defend that the best way they can. But they have size. Chicago has size at the wing too, David. That's really what worries me. I'm worried less about Vooch or anything that's going to happen inside. I'm more worried about the fact that they've got DeRozan and Levine and Lonzo and what that means just one-on-one versus Rozier versus Ball, versus some of these guards that aren't necessarily like great one-on-one defenders. I mean, I see a lot of I'm forecasting a lot of DeRozan post-ups in this game.
Well, that would be that you're not going out on a limb there, but you got to hope Bridges, even maybe Hayward down in the post can at least give him some problems or put a body on him and make some of these shots difficult. But that's his game. I mean, he's the master of the mid range right now across the league. So yeah, the Hornets. You would hope they could get hot from 3. Continue some of that hot 3-point shooting, and the Bulls may not be able to keep up. They definitely want to get out and run still because that's what this team – and that's when this team is fun. Even in that Rockets game when it was frustrating to watch, when they got a couple of breakouts and are able to get out and run and throw those alley-oops, that's what gets this team going, I think, and makes them fun to watch. This is a big game. This is a big game coming into the second kind of quarter of the season here with, I'm going to say it, two of the top teams in the East, Doug, and that has not been the case, for a long, long time.
I was surprised TNT didn't scoop this game up. The ball versus ball matchup is always overhyped and tends to make national TV. In fact, it will make national TV Wednesday, February 9th. It's the ESPN national TV game for the ball versus ball matchup. But this one you'll have to find on your local RSN. But should be an interesting matchup. The ball versus, any ball versus matchup this season, I think, has been overhyped. It tends to, both players, it's just almost like a curse. There's a little bit of like ball versus curse that's going on right now where LaMelo doesn't play well. So hopefully, because it's his brother, maybe you see a little bit more action. There's been another ball that has been part of the conversation very recently. Maybe it's due to the fact that both kids are playing each other tonight. It's been Lavar Ball. He had some interesting comments to multiple outlets. We talked a little bit about it on Friday, but he had another comment that I want to get to in the next segment. But first, let's talk about Built Bar. It's Cyber Monday. It's the best Monday of the year, and Built.com is the place to aim your mouse and fire some Built Bars into your cart. Get at least 20% off everything delicious and healthy. That's 20% off site-wide. That's nuts. And even bigger discounts on Built Boost, Broth, and Built Swag. A brand new Built Bar flavor has landed just in time for Cyber Monday. It's Caramel Almond Delight. That sounds amazing. And it delivers everything it promises. Caramelized chocolate, check. Almonds, check. Delightful, double check. Be sure to get yours before they're gone. 150 calories, 17 grams of protein. And this season, maybe you're craving white chocolate for a limited time. Get a special new Built Bar Puffs flavor. White chocolate cheesecake, the yummy protein treat filled with marshmallowy center covered in white chocolate. 140 calories, 17 grams of protein. 'Tis the season to save and to give your taste buds the gift of Built Bar. Get to Built.com for these incredible tasting new bars and 20% off everything. Head to Built.com, enter code LOCKED20 before it's too late. Also, Bet Online. We're done with Thanksgiving, but we're not done with football, and nothing goes better with football than turkey leftovers and betting. Bet Online has you covered all holiday season, more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online remains your number one spot for all the sports action. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus with the promo code LOCKEDON. That gets you that sweet, sweet bonus. And it's not just football. BetOnline has pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest, easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline, happy holidays and happy betting. Back with more Locked On Hornets ahead.
This is Locked On Hornets.
Segue. It's called a radio segue.
Well, and I saw
I'm feeling
Josh.
better, by the way, if you didn't notice. I didn't want, I'm a little bit of a private person, so I don't talk about my health issues often on the show. But now I'm healthy, and I think people are going to notice a change in me today. So I just wanted to kind of go ahead and get that out of the way, that Doug is unleashed on this show today. So watch out.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
David, Lavar Ball, always a center of some kind of controversy, normally around his children who are very good at basketball. The Hornets have one of his children, LaMelo Ball. Actually, they have two of his children, LiAngelo Ball, playing for the Greensboro Swarm. We mentioned on Friday, Lavar Ball, a little upset that LiAngelo Ball not getting big minutes in Greensboro. In fact, he's not really even mad that he's not getting big minutes in Greensboro. He's upset the LiAngelo Ball is not playing in Charlotte alongside LaMelo Ball, saying that the Hornets don't know what they have in LiAngelo Ball. But the comments that I want to talk about for this final segment of the show is on LaMelo Ball. Lavar Ball says he doesn't think LaMelo can be MVP. He knows LaMelo Ball can be MVP. Lavar Ball once again inserting himself into the conversation. David, what do you think?
I think this is a great sign for LaMelo's MVP chances. I mean, what else has he speaks everything into existence. I mean, he's got all three kids playing professional basketball, one step away from having all three in the NBA. Further than that, I think this is a brilliant move by the G League to get some Lavar Ball controversy going, get some eyes on the G League. I think he may be secretly employed by the G League, stir up some controversy there. Maybe we see some highlights from the G League, get some more attention on those guys. This is nothing but good. This is nothing but good news for the Hornets, and especially LaMelo Ball, of course.
It feels like Lavar spent a year in hiatus, let LaMelo do his thing in Charlotte, didn't really hear from Lavar Ball at all last season that I remember. No. And now he's it's like he had a year-long gag order, and now he's just ready to hit the scene. He's got all kinds of thoughts. He's got all kinds of takes. And as someone that has some pretty big takes himself on this show every once in a while, I can't help but relate with my man Lavar. You know, I respect him for laying out for a year, and I think you got to let Lavar for a little bit. I don't think, David, that it's going to be a distraction for the team at all. I think I think the fact that Lavar is making these comments to like TMZ and some of these other outlets
Yes.
kind of shows you where this is. It's not ending up on ESPN. I think that partly has to do with the fact that LaMelo plays in Charlotte. I think
Yeah.
if LaMelo played in New York, I think if he played in LA, then
yeah.
Lavar's comments, and had Lavar not gone on ESPN and made some unfortunate remarks about women that I think are important to note, then I think ESPN will be paying more attention to it. But Lavar Ball is an unserious person, should be taken with a huge, giant grain of salt. And I
Yes.
don't think this is going to really be a big deal.
No, I don't think if you're a Hornets fan, you have to be worried about this one iota. He has been at a game this year. I don't know how many Lavar sightings we've had at the Hornets games, but he's been there. So, he's paying attention, of course.
Yeah,
Uh,
keeping his eye on
I,
things.
I would love to. I wonder if he'll be there tonight, though. I mean, of the ball versus ball in Chicago, will we see him tonight is the question.
Yeah, and 2 games ago against Minnesota, we had McDaniels and McDaniels. So a lot of and when the Hornets play the Heat again, we'll have Martin versus Martin.
Oh, boy.
A lot of brotherly love going on with the Hornets and several of these franchises. So that's always fun to check out. One thing that I think will be important to LaMelo's chances at being MVP. You know, we talked about this a few shows ago, talked about LaMelo's opportunity to make all NBA at some point, and we ran through the stats. So, that's step one. Before you can become MVP, you got to get all NBA.
Sure.
So one of the things that I think is getting in the way of LaMelo being in any of those conversations are his clutch stats. I was taking a look at this because he was a big factor at the end of that game against Houston, had the ball in his hands a lot. I thought that was the right move because LaMelo had some fresh legs. He looked pretty hoppy out there. Tried to drive the basketball a few times, wasn't getting foul calls, wasn't getting that, sort of veteran respect. Did miss a three-pointer that I think really would have been a dagger 3. So I looked at his clutch numbers, David. He's had 12 games, opportunities for clutch minutes, 6 of 6 in those games, 35% from the field on 1.5 shots, and 28.6% from 3 in clutch minutes. Does have a good free throw percentage, but just not a ton of efficient production from LaMelo in clutch opportunities. And he's really not the guy right now that you throw the ball to at the end of games unless you're in those special circumstances.
Yeah, to me, this is not really about, whether he has the ability or has the clutch gene or anything like that. I think it's obvious he wants the ball in big situations and he's not afraid of that spotlight. To me, this is just kind of when things slow down in those crunch time situations, he's still trying to figure out the best way to facilitate those, especially like when his first option is not there or when he cannot find somebody to distribute it to. So I think it's still part of his learning process. They've got enough guys on this team that you feel like that shouldn't be a big issue. I mean, certainly you have Terry. I feel comfortable with Terry and even Hayward and Bridges. I mean, any of those guys taking a shot in the last second or as the clock winds down. So, I think the only way to get better at that is for him to have the ball in the situations and just to go through them. I think that'll come with time. And I think he's got the ability to do that. One thing I will say, I'm surprised at a little bit of the lack of calls he gets on a regular basis when he goes to the basket. I can't figure out if his ability to kind of weave in and out of people with his body, especially like in midair, and kind of take a shot or get contact glanced off him is doing something with that. But it feels like he should be getting a few more opportunities to go to the line when he drives into the basket, and maybe that'll come with time too.
Yeah, how much of that is a refereeing respect issue, and how much of that is maybe something strategic or tactical that he's doing on these drives? I don't think he's necessarily. I think when he drives, he's not necessarily avoiding contact, but I think overall in his game, he's more reliant on the floater than I think he should be at times. I think he should put his head down and get to the basket a little bit more. And maybe with that, if he starts doing that, he'll pick up, more of these calls on the whole. We're just not seeing him take it all the way very often. And so maybe that kind of skews our observation about how often he gets fouled in those situations. I don't think LaMelo Ball is like an empty calorie stats player. I think he's come up very big in big games for the Hornets, and he's been the reason why they've won some of these games, or at least a big contributor to those wins. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm not really concerned about the clutch aspect of his game. I think it's to be determined. I'm not convinced that he's a player that can knock down big shots that win games, that win close games in those situations, because I just haven't seen it bear itself out. And that's partly because he's not getting those opportunities right now. I think those opportunities will start to come to him more and more as the games get bigger and the spotlight grows and his role on the team grows as well. So that's all I'm saying, is it's to be determined, but right now I'm looking at the numbers and it's not great. In fact, his brother, Lonzo Ball, is actually worse in the clutch. He's had the same number of opportunities. The ball doesn't go to him as much in the clutch, but he's 25% from the field and has not attempted a three-point shot in clutch minutes yet. So, and we know too that it's more than just scoring. Like LaMelo does other things in those clutch minutes and makes assists and facilitates for other guys. So we have to take that into account as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to see clutch numbers go up because of a thing like, getting that steal and the rebound against the Wizards, right, in the last second.
Right.
I mean, that was a game-saving, game-winning play that doesn't show
Totally.
up. So his impact across the board, you can just feel it and watch it. Like, it's really, even in that Rockets game, triple-double, of course, but wasn't a big scoring. But his impact, when you watch the game, his impact is, to me, LeBron, like Luka, like that level of impact at such a young age. Like, you're building on that. So that's
and we're
that's
right,
positive.
but we're waiting for those narrative shots because we're waiting for the LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Kevin Durant. I mean, all of these guys have hit huge game-winning shots. And that's where we're waiting to see from LaMelo Ball. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Hornets. Thanks so much for making Locked On Hornets your first listen or your first watch every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, and with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. For Walker, he'll be back tomorrow. And David, by the way, David, thank you for joining me. Thanks for getting the game
My pleasure. Again, anytime you look down the bench, I'm available. Follow
him on Twitter at David B. Walker. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, go Hornets, go America. Let's swarm Charlotte.